Okay, so this is meant to be a very quick update. I'm going to get to some questions that were sent in or called in to people I spoke with, so I want to share it with the rest of the shareholders. The unit is in Texas, or I should say the first iron removal system is in Texas. We'll get into a more in-depth discussion on the numbers, the production values, after we run some averages and test some of the results on the crude as it's been produced. Some of the issues and challenges that we had to meet. You know, this is a new product, and whenever you're trying to bring a new product to market, there's going to be these challenges. I know Stan and the guys were a little frustrated, but I reassured them that I've been through this before with other products, and it takes time. Things are going to happen. One of those things is the electrical supply company sent out the wrong connectors and plates twice. They overnighted it. It gets there. It was like 10:30 in the morning, and everything, not everything. A few things were wrong again. So they had to send that out. They had to drive, forget how many miles, but I mean, it was well over an hour to find some electrical supply place that actually had it and back so the guys could put everything in. So these sorts of things happen. It's not like you can go to Home Depot and they have everything we need. So that's another challenge when you're dealing with a lot of this specialty or more of this professional level products and materials. And this brings me to the point of why, because I know there's some criticism about this. Why have I slowed production? I haven't slowed production. When we're doing this, we're taking a stepwise approach. We're being, very conservative in how we move forward. Don't want to make a very expensive mistake, right? So this is why initial production was intentionally and methodically slowed down for rather than go into the next unit right away and the next 2 or 4 units. So we're working out some of these bugs, not only in the manufacturing process to kind of pin down some of these procedural elements, but also within the supply chain itself, because these mistakes happen. Ultimately, we're actually ahead of target, but internally we want it to be a little early. Um, and this kind of sets us up for in the future production and manufacturing and delivery will happen a lot faster. So we're going to move quicker as we progress. So I want to get into a couple of questions that I received personal phone calls on, or I think we had sent some direct messages in. Why do we do this in Colorado? All of our tooling, all of the equipment and tools, etc., they're in Colorado. This would have taken 3 times longer had we done it in Goliad. I call it Goliad, Texas. Again, bringing up the Home Depot example, everything's spread out, and Home Depot does not carry everything we need. And we have a lot of specialty tools in Colorado that would have not been readily available. So this would have been a big challenge. It was actually faster and less expensive to do it this way. The next question I received was how many of these things we're going to make. So initial production is going to ramp up. We're looking at 2 to 4 systems a month, and then we're going to increase as we grow. It's important to note that it's not necessarily the number of systems we need to focus on, but the capacity in which we're able to treat and produce treated crude oil. I'm going to go into a little more specifics on that because it was a question, smart question that I was asked over the phone. Funding. They want to know where are we on funding? Where is this going to take? How much is it going to be? Where is it going to take place? So the SBA we're targeting. It's estimated. Don't hold me to this because there's a few things that have to happen sometime in June. So that's where we're at as far as that funding block coming in. As far again, say funding block. I want to be very clear. These are loans. These are credit facilities because I did receive a question on this. How much we're trying to raise, and I'm going to go over that here shortly. We're not necessarily raising capital, but we are executing or initiating credit facilities or loans. Another thing I got called on very recently was this idea, this reverse split's being brought up again. I want to let's put a pin in this one. I've answered this many times. We're not doing a reverse split now. Sort of, kind of understand why it's being asked when you're focusing just on price per share, but that misses so many elements that are critical to a successful, I would say from your point of view, that the person that was asking this, share price. When and if this becomes necessary to restructure the company. I'm sure it will in the future. I'm going to let you know. This isn't going to be a surprise. I'm not going to, come out of left field with this. You're going to know that this is what I'm thinking and this is what we need to do. And then I'm going to explain why, as I have always done. For better, for worse, I try to be as transparent as possible. I know it's kind of bit me in the rear sometimes. Things changed, and that's not always understood. So keep in mind, with this restructuring the company, many things have to happen before something like that becomes beneficial, not only to the company, but to the shareholders. So I explained this to that individual. I'm not going to get into it now. We've got to look at so many different elements within the public and private side that it's very premature. So let's not keep going over that. We're beating that to a dead horse here. Okay, how much capital are you looking to raise, or have you raised, or you want to raise, right? So what we're doing is we're structuring debt facilities with repayment terms. So this isn't necessarily selling shares or any other way to raise capital within a public company. Obviously, selling shares is the primary reason the company goes public, and that's how they raise money. We're not necessarily doing that. What we're doing is we're going to lending institutions, small firms and banks, and asking for a loan, and then we're explaining how we're going to repay it and why we need the loan, use of proceeds, etc. As far as the total amount, I'm just going to stick with where we're starting off with. That loan amount is about $5 million, and that's just for now, which should cover 25 or so high capacity systems. And this is where we get into production. So that's about 2.25 million barrels a month capacity that we would look to produce, which should be just a little bit more, if I'm not mistaken, 150,000 more, roughly. Don't hold me to that. I mean, it's just a little bit more than what our current contracts and what the contracts that we have kind of on deck, if you will, that we would be looking to service. And then as we need, we would grow that capacity, which would in turn require more funding or more loans. And we will borrow as much as is needed and as much as production will support, or those revenues will support. Okay, so the next one was, how much does each machine, talking about the IRS systems, how much do they make? It varies. It varies based off of the parts per million or the suspended materials within the crude that need to be removed, how much iron, how much paraffin, etc. And, I can give you ballparks, and I know that the calculators out. So it's going to be roughly on a low capacity system about 240,000 a month. High capacity is double that amount, about 480,000 a month. Again, before we start taking out the calculators and counting dollars, understand this is going to be a very slow ramp up until it makes sense to speed things up. So as far as manufacturing, production, and delivery of these systems, I want to be very clear. This is not happening next month. Over the course of the next several months, we will ramp up production to meet the needs of the contracts. And then, of course, looking a little, as we discussed with other producers, what their needs are before we sign them on, we'll start moving forward in production. This is not going to be, 4 to 8 units next month. That's not what's going to happen. It doesn't make fiscal sense to do that. We also have to ramp up the human capital side, which we have to bring on people to operate these machines 2 to 3 shifts per 24-hour cycle. So understand, and I know I'm going to get hit on this. Why are you slowing down? Why aren't you, chase the money and all these other things I keep hearing in the comments and so forth. This is new technology. We haven't built it before. We did a demonstration unit. It worked very well. But in order to get it well, there were many changes and things we learned, the changes that had to be made with that system. Now we've scaled up. Everything seems to be fine for now. Things happen. An example could be things that we don't understand, that we don't foresee, I should say. Things like you drive in the trailer back to Texas and a control arm, the top, catches the wind, and a control arm, I should say, gets bent and almost torn off. That's a problem. one that we had to address during transit, right? These are all kinds of things that I think many people don't take into consideration, especially those who are not in manufacturing, but anything can happen. They have to be addressed. Might only take a couple hours, like in the case of they put the door in the wrong spot when they were making the trailer. So that was a couple hour fix to move it. To it might take several hours or even a day or so. So luckily we haven't had any significant delays and we're ahead of schedule. But understand that we need to account for all the things that we can foresee and some of the things that we're going to learn along the way. So I want to make sure the systems are working flawlessly before we start making 10, 20, 30 of these things, because then we'll have to correct that 10, 20, 30 times. And that becomes very expensive, very time consuming. So we're going to move forward methodically, and we should meet our year end goals pretty during any major functions or delays, etc. So right now, I want to kind of temper expectations with the understanding that we're moving forward again methodically to make sure that everything's working as we thought it would work. Okay, so I know everybody's really excited about this. We're excited about this. I even told Stan over the phone, take the win. You produced the first one. Second one is ready to go. We just have to start putting some of that equipment in. But I want to make sure that before we do that, everything that they laid out, because there's all these charts and diagrams, I think it's laid out first. I'm sure most people understand that there's a CAD drawing, if you will, lays out all the electrical and plumbing, etc. We want no changes need to be made. Start laying all that down. The good news is now that you did the first one, the second one is going to go a lot faster and a lot easier. So we expect that production should ramp up pretty quickly. But I want to make sure everything works. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll let you know how things are going, and then we're going to start ramping up production. Okay, so I want to cut it off there. Video that I wanted, but addressed some or most of your concerns, and then we'll be putting out some, press releases, and quarterly will come out, and that should be more than sufficient to keep everybody updated as to what's going on. As things happen, we're probably going to do some videos, some pictures, and then we'll share those with you. Okay, thank you for everyone's support. Got a lot of call-ins. I understand some of the criticisms. I did take someone's advice and look at some of these other comments at other places. Guys, my recommendation is let us, show that we're getting it done. And as far as arguing and, the negativity amongst yourselves, just stop all of that. We're going to get there. I don't need anyone to defend me. I'm going to move forward, as I have said. Of course, there's always challenges. I know I've fallen short in some cases. It was unintentional, and I've apologized repeatedly for that. So I look forward to talking to you next time. And again, thank you so much for all of your support. And I think I don't know what we're going to talk next, but we should do something here soon. And then as we make these announcements and so forth, I'll put out a video and we'll go in depth. And then, of course, we're always going to do the Q&A. I just don't know how often we're going to do that. I've got some travel ahead of me, and I got some other things I got to take care of with the company, so schedule gets tight. So hope everybody understands that, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Thank you.